President Barack Obama has won backing from key U.S. political figures on his plans for a military strike on Syria. Mr. Obama said a limited strike was needed to degrade President Bashar al-Assad's capabilities in response to an alleged chemical weapons attack. Key Republican leaders John Boehner and Cantor both signaled their support for military action. Congress is expected to vote next week. The UN earlier confirmed that more than 2 million Syrians were now refugees. More than 100,000 people are thought to have died since the uprising against President Assad began in March 2011. Broader strategy. President Obama and Vice President Joe Biden met House Speaker John Boehner, House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi and the chairman and ranking members from the National Security Committees in Washington on Tuesday. Mr. Boehner signaled his support for Mr. Obama's call for action, saying that only the U.S. had the capacity to stop President Assad. Mr. Boehner urged his colleagues in Congress to follow suit. Mr. Cantor, the House of Representatives Majority Leader, said he also backed Mr. Obama. The Virginia Republican said, Assad's Syria, a state sponsor of terrorism, is the epitome of a rogue state, and it has long posed a direct threat to American interests and to our partners. Ms. Pelosi said she did not believe Congress would reject the resolution calling for force. Mr. Obama said that Mr. Assad had to be held accountable for the chemical attack and that he was confident Congress would back him. He said he was proposing military action that would degrade President Assad's capacity to use chemical weapons now and in the future. What we are envisioning is something limited. It is something proportional, the president said. At the same time, we have a border strategy that will allow us to upgrade the capabilities of the opposition. Secretary of State John Kerry, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel and the top U.S. military officer, General Martin Dempsey, are appearing before the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. Mr. Kerry told the panel that U.S. allies such as Israel and Jordan were one stiff breeze away from potentially being hurt by any fresh chemical weapons attacks, and that U.S. inaction would only embolden the Syrian president. This is not the time for armchair isolationism, Mr. Kerry said. This is not the time to be spectators to slaughter. Neither our country nor our conscience can afford the cost of silence. We have spoken up against unspeakable horror many times in the past. Now we must stand up and act. But Mr. Kerry said again that there would be no American boots on the ground in Syria and that President Obama was not asking America to go to war. Mr. Hagel said that the word of the United States must mean something and echoed Mr. Kerry when adding, a refusal to act would undermine the credibility of America's other security commitments, including the president's commitment to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. There will also be a classified briefing for all members of Congress. Mr. Obama will head to Sweden late on Tuesday for a G20 meeting sure to be dominated by Syria. France has strongly backed the U.S. plan for military action, President François Hollande said on Tuesday. When a chemical massacre takes place, when the world is informed of it, when the evidence is delivered, when the guilty parties are known, then there must be an answer. He called for Europe to unite on the issue, but said he would wait for the Congress vote. If Congress did not support military action, France would not act alone, he said. UK Prime Minister David Cameron had also backed Mr. Obama, but Parliament rejected a resolution on military action. On Tuesday, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said that the organization's charter permitted military action only in self-defense or with the agreement of the Security Council. Mr. Ban said a U.S. military response could create more turmoil, but that if chemical weapons had been used in Syria, then the Security Council should unite and take action against what would be an outrageous war crime. The U.S. has put the death toll from the attack on the outskirts of Damascus on 21 August at 1,429, including 426 children, though other countries and organizations have given lower figures. The Syrian government denies any involvement. In an interview with French newspaper Le Figaro on Monday, President Assad said such an action would have been illogical. He warned that foreign military action could ignite a wider regional conflict. As tensions rose on Tuesday, a senior Israeli defense official confirmed to the BBC that a missile has been fired to test its defense systems. The BBC's Richard Galpin in Jerusalem says it is a sign that Israel is taking very seriously the possibility that any U.S. airstrikes could lead to retaliatory attacks on Israel, either by Syria itself or by its ally, the Shia militia Hezbollah in Lebanon. Overwhelming burden. Earlier, the UN Refugee Agency said that more than 2 million Syrians were now registered as refugees, after the total went up by 1 million in the past 6 months. It said in a statement, "Syria is hemorrhaging women, children and men who cross borders often with little more than the clothes on their backs. Around half of those forced to leave are children," UN agencies estimate, with about 3/4 of them under 11, as well as those who have left the country. A further 4.25 million have been displaced within Syria, the UNHCR says, meaning that more people from Syria are now forcibly displaced than from other countries. Pointing out that more than 97% of Syria's refugees are being hosted by countries in the surrounding region, the UNHCR said the influx was placing an overwhelming burden on their infrastructures, economies and societies. It appealed again for massive international support. On Tuesday, Sweden announced it would become the first European country to grant asylum to all Syrian refugees who apply. They will get permanent resident status. Sweden has taken in 14,700 asylum seekers from Syria since 2012. The UN says this is the worst refugee crisis for 20 years, with numbers not seen since the 1994 genocide in Rwanda.